Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today, and we're dipping back into a Todd Howard interview to talk Starfield, Elder Scrolls 6, and yes, even Fallout 5. So earlier this week, we got into the thick of things with Starfield news and information in this IGN interview with Todd Howard. However, I wanted to have a separate conversation because there were some things in here that were a little scary that were said. Now, not in the way where you're going to walk out mortified, but it shows that time is starting to catch up with us a bit, and the way Bethesda's making their games and the way Todd Howard's career is trending, we're about to see them collide, which in some ways is going to lead to exciting products that are more evergreen, but in other ways it means that some projects we're really looking forward to, Todd may or may not be involved in them, and while I know the internet likes to slander, this is one of gaming's greatest icons, in my opinion. You want his hands on your project. And so there's much to be said as we go through all of these games now and into the future and what Todd Howard had to say about them. So ladies and gentlemen, if you're new here, you're into Bethesda news and information, you're in the right place. Consider subscribing. Let's start with a bit of a recap. So it seems like IGN's on this one interview with Todd Howard per year cadence. And so last year, June 2022, Ryan McCaffrey sat down to talk with Todd Howard about what we saw with Starfield, and it was there that it was confirmed that after Elder Scrolls 6, Fallout 5 would be next. Here's Todd's exact quote where he says, yes, Elder Scrolls 6 is in pre-production, and we're going to be doing Fallout 5 after that, so our slate's pretty full going forward for a while. We have some other projects that we look at from time to time as well. I say all of that to catch you up because what Todd said in this recent interview, well, he submitted a bit of a clarification on what actually may be happening after Elder Scrolls 6. Now, nothing seems to have changed with the roadmap going from Starfield to Elder Scrolls 6, but after that, well, let's just have Todd speak for himself.
Elder Scrolls 6 is the next thing. You said it's in pre-production. And then last year when we talked, you said, yep, Fallout 5, I want to do that. That'll be next.
That was more of like a general, it will clearly be after Elder Scrolls 6 at some point.
Okay.
That's like, let me clarify that.
All right, go ahead.
At some point in the future.
Okay. At some point. Okay. Oh, man. I get it. Because as a creative person, I know many of you out there are the same. You do your best work when you work on what you want to work. And Bethesda Game Studios has been mighty resistant to being this Elder Scrolls Fallout, press a button kind of machine, and out comes the game. They, I think with Fallout 76, kind of got caught with their pants down, operating more as a business than a creative outlet. And we saw how that burned them, right? The back-to-back Fallout games just felt kind of uninspired. And of course, the bug-ridden nature of 76 at its launch spoke for itself, and now we're seeing the major difference with Starfield when it's this new, fresh, exciting thing, just how far they can carry things. So I understand if after Elder Scrolls 6 they don't want to box themselves in and say, yeah, we're going to do Fallout next. The exciting idea of a Fallout next from Bethesda Game Studios at that point is, imagine where technology is. Imagine everything we see in Starfield and in Elder Scrolls 6 now being brought into Fallout, because one thing that excited me with Starfield is we saw so many elements from previous BGS games being poured into Starfield. And obviously, it's a cascading effect with Bethesda Game Studios games where what we see in Starfield will likely carry into Elder Scrolls. They all share this similar BGS DNA while having their own identity. Point being, though, is that we're not really going to lock in Fallout 5 after Elder Scrolls 6. So the wait may be longer. And I know what your next question will be, which is like, okay, can someone else in the, Xbox Game Studios family, Exile, Obsidian, can someone pick up the slack while Bethesda Game Studios is understandably busy? We will get into that in a moment. For now, let's just stick with Elder Scrolls 6 because Todd, man, I will cry the day this happens, I kid you not, but he talked a bit on retirement and what that may look like. So listen to this clip here on what may be Todd's final Elder Scrolls game.
So our ability, like we talked about, to support Starfield, whereas maybe in the old days you would put it out and then you'd go on to a sequel, now we can support that game for a much longer period of time, which is what our plan is. And then as we look to like an Elder Scrolls 6, that is one where, like, I probably shouldn't say this, but if I do the math, I am not getting any younger. How long do people play in Elder Scrolls for? That may be the last one I do. I don't know.
The last Elder Scrolls.
The last Elder Scrolls.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't know.
I mean, I do the math as a gamer, and it's like, am I even going to be playing Elder Scrolls 6 on the Series X, or am I going to be playing that on the next thing? Because it's crazy how long the games that you make they take a long time.
I wish they did. I want them to be faster, but that speed isn't the goal.
Right. Or should it
The
be?
goal is, hey, what's the product? What's the vision? How do we do this? And how do we continue to support the ones that we currently have? Because we have millions of people playing Fallout 4, millions playing 76, Skyrim. So it's about, hopefully have that with Starfield.
There's much to take away from that, right? He talks about the focus not being on speed. It's about doing it right. And you'll notice that to be a common theme in this clip and in the next clip I'm going to show you all, which I really do respect. I think Bethesda Game Studios has a lot of very tasty IP that many businesses would love to wring dry. And while they've tried their best with things like Elder Scrolls Online being fantastic, Fallout 76 hopefully finding its footing in the next couple of years, which I know is kind of funny given when it launched, but some of its recent updates have been good, to be honest, where they have been business focused with their IP, but maybe they've served as lessons to do things right, because that seems to be what matters in the first place and not just making IP money printers. But Todd has suggested that Elder Scrolls 6 would be his last Elder Scrolls game, and he re-emphasized that. He said Elder Scrolls game, so this isn't necessarily his final game, but his last Elder Scrolls game. Now, Todd Howard is 52, and as he said, he's not getting any younger, where it's one of those things, y'all, where I just, I told a lot of people when Starfield was being revealed, and I was doing my live reactions on my channel, I said, enjoy this, because when you think of how long it takes for a BGS game to come around, and this doesn't mean remove all objectivity about the game, but when you think of how long it takes for him to come around and how our man Todd isn't going to be making games for us with his team forever, this is a special era for video games. And I just encourage people to soak it in, especially this kind of hype cycle. Again, it doesn't mean you got to strip objectivity like I did back in 2015 with Fallout 4, but really enjoy it, because, the clock is ticking now. And yeah, if Elder Scrolls 6 ends up being his final Elder Scrolls game, I hope it's a phenomenal send-off. The reason I say that is the history of Bethesda Game Studios. Their back was against the wall. They were about to shut down. Morrowind was up next. Todd Howard came in, and they said, let's go all out. And it turns out being one of the best games they've ever made, and it saves the company. So in a lot of ways, it's like, how great would it be for that to be his final game? As much as I want to keep him around, everyone wants to eventually retire and just enjoy life and be happy with what you did and just coast through the rest of your days. I totally would understand it, and there would be something truly poetic with the series that really put Bethesda Game Studios on the map and kickstarted things to be his final game. Now, he said final Elder Scrolls game, but with the way the pivot happened with Fallout 5, it seems like things are shifting with Bethesda Game Studios. And look, as much as I want to keep Todd around and enjoy his games, I totally understand with AAA development and how stressful and intense it is that he may say, you know what, that actually is going to be my last one. So things can change, but now we're again getting that reality check of, okay, we have these IP that are very, very attractive that we're all excited for. Like, we're excited for Starfield. Hopefully it delivers. I think it will. Fallout, we already know we love. Elder Scrolls, we already know we love. How are we going to get more of these games, even beyond Todd? How is that going to work? Well, it's something we've speculated a lot about before. I'll get into certain examples of that. It's something that a lot of the community has expected, but it looks like Bethesda Game Studios is viewing their games as platforms, so to say, and continuing to focus on long-term support. We heard Todd mention that in the previous clip, but the reason I bring this up is Ryan asked the golden question. Again, I love that he double dipped on this one. Ryan is a great interviewer for this reason, because he talked about it last year, hey, you're going to work with other companies on certain IP, but he really focused on Fallout in that regard. He kept this question a lot more open and airy, which is exactly what I would do in his shoes, because it's like, okay, what if we go from a different angle instead of just Fallout, which we're all focused on, like, hey, you got Fallout talent, would you work with them on something? So he asked a very simple question. With all this IP and all this talent, would you work with someone on something, given that you want to direct Fallout 5? So let's hear what Todd has to say about that.
You had told me last year that you want to direct Fallout 5, like that you want that to be your game at some point down the road. But now with the Microsoft, Bethesda, Xbox Game Studios family getting a lot bigger, you did work with Obsidian years ago with New Vegas. Could any of the games that you and your team have created, any of these 3 franchises, would you would you want to work with any of them potentially on something in the future?
I mean, I can't say never to any of that. For us, it is what's going to get us the best product.
Yeah.
How do we stay focused? I think there's a lot of times where you can get unfocused and try to do too many things at once, and then they don't end up necessarily the way you want. And so if I look at other franchises or I look at entertainment in general, I haven't noticed like the time gap between things being a negative.
Right.
Right? They can be a negative when you think about it and you make a calendar.
Yeah.
Hey, when
well,
Starfield 2.
Look at Grand Theft Auto.
Exactly.
That hasn't suffered in the
Or,
slightest.
the gaps between, I think Half-Life 3 will do fine. Right? So, so even though in the moment, you're like, how do I bring that closer to reality today? Because I want to play it. Those gaps, these are still evergreen franchises that I think when they come, it's about just doing it right.
Obviously, we'll never know until the day it happens, but my interpretation of that clip is he sounds a little more open to things, where last time it was very much a shutting down, no, we want to do our own thing, but he didn't sound as protective as he previously had in other interviews. The focus again was doing it right, and I guess that means finding the right partner. So a lot of people, including myself, are under the impression, oh, Obsidian, press button, New Vegas 2, good. And I wonder if Todd sees it that way. Truly, not to put words in his mouth, but it seems obvious. But Obsidian has a very full plate, and we don't know or understand the inner workings of these companies and how easy or difficult it is to get an IP partnership in progress. I imagine with everything underneath the Xbox banner that it's much more possible than other crazy partnerships we've conjured up in our heads. But Todd seems again to be focused very much on the quality of things, which I have to admire, because again, as much as I want another Fallout game, I don't want another 76. And the reason I say that is not because of the obvious thing, but what's happened is I recognized this during the Xbox showcase, is when the TV static hit, it wasn't just, oh, it's 76. It was that moment of realizing there was a feeling you'd experience when the TV static hit, and you still get that little spark, but it definitely feels different now, right? Because the quality was missed. So there was a special feeling when the TV please stand by static hit, and you realized, oh my God, it's Fallout. Now it's, okay, it's Fallout. Let's see what we got here. Because of the TV show, because of the online game, because of the expansions, because of Fallout 4, right? We've seen so much of it. So a lot of the things that he hangs on to here is missing something for a while. And I imagine that is the blessing and the curse of Fallout 4 and its hype cycle. Fallout 4 did insanely well. And the reason for that is, as someone who was at the heart of the hype, leading into way before there was any please stand by, there were any direct teases from Bethesda Game Studios, there was legitimate, tangible excitement for a new Fallout game from Bethesda Game Studios at least a year in advance of any type of official announcement. And the OG Mr. Matty viewers will know that was very much the case. So I imagine that was something Bethesda genuinely looked at and said, okay, I mean, that helped us out a lot. And those gaps help out a lot. I have to disagree with Todd's philosophy here, that I get the idea of when you look at a calendar and the gaps, you think about it more, you fixate on it more, and it looks bad. But I don't think it's as simple as pressing a button. But I do think when you establish something people love that doesn't seemingly have an end or sense of finality, like Elder Scrolls, like Fallout, where there's regions and places you can go to explore and stories to be told, that there is an expectation there will be more there. And I hope they do take a genuine look at things. Beyond easy things like the remasters, I hope there is an openness to partnerships that do provide more content for fans. And it seems like, based off what he's talked about with Starfield, that it's going to be supported for a long time. He's talking about beyond expansions, and this goes to what I mentioned and we speculated about based off a Skyrim Steam DB leak, which is a marketplace potentially coming to that game. And I've said for a while, I think it's going to come to all BGS games. I think it's going to come to Fallout 4. I think it's going to come to Starfield. I think that they're going to do Creation Club with Starfield. I think they're going to do console modding for Starfield. I mean, there's so much there that I think Bethesda's going to sink into to keep these games alive for years and years and years. I think a lot of people are wondering about the official content, because Todd did confirm in this interview that there's still a full-size team on 76, understandably so, since the game is still getting support. So will the same thing happen for Starfield is the real question here, because with Game Pass and with the excitement, you have to imagine there will be a substantial player count here. So we'll see, but still a little bit of a reality check for many of us as we see Todd starting to kind of reveal, like, yeah, time's a ticking, and we only got so many games ahead of us. Now, of course, Bethesda Game Studios precedes Todd Howard, but there is that feeling of, like, his hand on these games. Like, you could tell the influences there with certain games versus certain games that he was lesser involved in. So, ladies and gentlemen, I leave it in your hands now. I'm curious to see what you think about all of this information on Starfield, Fallout, and Elder Scrolls 6. So fire away. Let me know what you're thinking down below. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. And a big thank you to all the patrons, all the members who continue to support the hell out of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.